Would you like to know the secret to a long-term, intimate partner relationship where love is the key? Well, the following video provides the answer with a simple two-part methodology. How is this possible? The teachings of the Buddha form the basis for self-management of suffering, a core element of the methodology, which can be described as follows. Part 1. Buddha Suffering Management. Part 2. Love times 12, which comprises the following 12 behaviors and actions within the relationship on the part of both partners. Trust, commitment, affection, appreciation, empathy, friendship, physical intimacy, compromise, respect, kindness, quality time, and generosity. As we know, falling in love and being in love is perhaps the most intense, satisfying and sustaining relationship one can have outside of that with our children. It can also be the most heartbreaking and traumatic. Why? Because our emotions emit energy which is transmitted outside of our body to close, intimate partners and family, whether we like it or not. We cannot hide these emotions, and science has proven this little-known fact. Therefore, if we ask our partner out of true concern for their well-being, "Is everything okay?" and they answer yes, everything is fine, no problem, they may in fact be lying and not realize it. Their true state of emotional energy could be negative in one of the following forms. First, hidden from them, deep within their subconscious, but exposed through energy transmission to their partner. Second, hidden by them in an effort of deception. And thirdly, masked by them in seeking to protect their partner from the impact of that negative energy. This can be problematic in a partnership. Both partners need to understand this unexpected yet inevitable exposure. In engaging in an intimate relationship, we both knowingly and in part unknowingly open ourselves up to emotional exposure. Of course, this is fine when our emotional energy is neutral or positive, such as when we are happy, but problematic when it is negative or toxic. Therefore, a partner relationship needs to be nourished, cherished, and recognized for what it is, as do the constraints placed upon it, whether meaningfully or not. Maintaining and sustaining an intimate partner relationship creates benefits for both parties, regardless of sex or gender identity. The benefits can be physical, psychological, and spiritual. For example, scientific experiments reveal to us that following arguments between intimate partners, autoimmune defenses are lowered, especially for women. Reality also reveals the commonality of relationship breakdown, divorce, and sadness all around, before and after separation. The extent of relationship breakdown currently stands at around 56% within Western societies. It is therefore worth considering a means to sustain the magic of falling in love and being in love. We do not want to reach a stage where the reality of that fact is questioned by one or other, or both parties, leading to dissipation of connection. Separation and intimate relationship end. There is something significant in regard to achieving the long-term sustainability of an intimate partner relationship. That thing is self-management of one's own suffering. The teachings of the Buddha are considered herein to be fundamental in dealing with this. Self-care, self-knowledge, and self-management of suffering are key to a long, happy, healthy life, both within and outside of a partner relationship. Everyone is ultimately responsible for achieving that throughout their life, as suffering is encountered along the way. Self-knowledge is another vital element, and usually associated with the aging process and the getting of wisdom through experience. Using the directed teachings of the Buddha, and with increasing confidence in oneself, the world can be faced and the challenges of suffering addressed. In managing them, one can set them aside for periods or move on from others, thus releasing the partner relationship from the burden of external suffering. The relationship is therefore more likely to be addressed mindfully, with both partners focused on its sustainability. Support for suffering management may come from various quarters, such as teachers, intimate partners, children and family, friends, or community. However, in order to manage suffering, the buck ultimately stops with the individual. One cannot simply blame the outside world for suffering faced and unhappiness felt, or look to others for its cessation. Individual suffering may depend on nature or nurture, and especially childhood and early adult experiences which may induce trauma that persists throughout one's lifetime. The role of parents can be key, emphasizing the impact of the presence or lack of love towards a child. A lacking can give rise to suffering in the form of ongoing trauma and diminished mental well-being. Self-care and knowledge of self are therefore key to long-term contentment and attainment of happiness, such that an individual can then bring that self-awareness into their partner relationship and not add to the suffering of the partner. If successful, this leads to an individual happiness arising out of the management of suffering. Of course, suffering cannot simply be eliminated or even shared adequately, as Kate Bush expounded in her hit song Running Up That Hill. A deal with God. Whilst it would be ideal to make such a deal with God to swap places with one's partner, to understand their perspective, such a deal is not possible. However, it can be managed, and the differences between the sexes acknowledged in the process. The methodology presented below is termed Buddha Suffering Management plus Love times 12. It aims to be sex and gender neutral. In outlining the methodology, it should be noted that reciprocity is key in any intimate partner relationship, for the needs of both parties are reasonable and necessary if it is to remain healthy, loving, and long-term. One partner cannot dominate or ignore the needs of the other. Both are equal. In the parent relationship, the role is often simply carer, teacher, and guide. The complex nature of the intimate partner relationship is different and little appreciated. Aspects of the depth of significance of physical and psychological attachment, which are key elements of the partner relationship, were revealed in 2012 by neuroscientists and psychologists Levine and Heller. They stated, and I quote, "Numerous studies show that once we become attached to someone, the two of us form one physiological unit. Our partner regulates our blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing, and the levels of hormones in our blood." The emphasis on differentiation that is held by most of today's popular psychology approaches to adult relationships does not hold water from a biology perspective. Dependency is a fact. It is not a choice or a preference. End of quote. The rejection of traditional counseling and partner relationship treatments, as noted in the previous paragraph, will be seen throughout this video due to the nature of the methodology presented. The element of dependency mentioned in the above quote is another word for the whole "do you have my back" plea. The 12 reasonable and required partner relationship needs and actions listed above were highlighted in a 2024 YouTube video by English counselor Laura. How it can be seen from the list that many of the items are closely related and, in fact, form a holistic whole that encompasses much of what is entailed in describing falling in love and being in love. They merely codify things that are already known and experienced by couples. The 12 needs and actions relate to both of the individuals forming a partnership, whether male and female or other gender mixes. The How video also presents 4 actions required in order to obtain legitimate and necessary intimate relationship needs. Outside of the specific methodology presented in the current video, these include identifying your needs clearly to yourself, communicating them to your partner, taking care of yourself, and working out who you are dealing with. It is important to address these needs in the situation faced within a partnership with loving kindness and compassion, and maintain an open perspective regarding both sides of the situation. Real, uncensored, open communication between the two is required. The walls limiting such communication between the partners, and which are often built up over years, must be torn down. As noted in the Love times 12 listings above, physical intimacy is key to the sustainability of an intimate partner relationship. In fact, all 12 elements are vital to sustainability. The absence of one or more threatens this, and embracing, and the often sublime nature of sexual intercourse with the one you love. Physical intimacy in a partnership can range from a simple phone call, being in the same room together. Physical touch, such as holding hands, all parties place a varying degree of emphasis on physical intimacy during the life of a partnership, and in many instances, its absence can be the seeming root cause of relationship breakdown. This brings up the question, why do individuals in intimate partnerships have affairs? The main reason is that the partnership is failing, and that the person, after consideration, looks for a replacement whilst they are still in the partnership. Why don't they leave? Usually because they fear loneliness and loss of those elements of a partnership, which include security and perhaps ongoing love. The resulting breakup can then take 3 forms, 2 of which may be devastating to the aggrieved partner. 1. They leave without telling their partner why. 2. They leave following a period of discussion in which they tell their partner why they are not happy, but no solution is reached. And 3. Both parties, following open communication, come to the realization that the partnership has broken down and they agree to separate for the good of both. Self-reflection and open communication can provide a solution and enable individuals to address issues and eventually move on or manage them. Leaving suffering to one side as other parts of life are dealt with? The latter does not mean that they do not still have deep feelings for each other. It simply means that the partnership is not a truly intimate one. The elusive and broad concept of happiness is also key here. Happy individuals will sustain a happy, intimate partner relationship, but happiness comes from within, not without. Both partners are ultimately responsible for their own happiness. In the knowledge that the external environment is often the source of suffering, this is reinforced in a short video from American counselor Karen Seitz, wherein the message is quite stark and confronting, which they can then bring to the relationship in order to enable it to be a happy one, and two together increase the level of happiness therein. It urges men to stop trying to make their wives happy at all cost, just as it implies the same for women, whilst emphasizing the former. For starters, each partner needs to achieve a level of happiness on their own. Another view from Seitz goes to the core of much of the conflict between men and women, with the first being identified as problem solvers and the other as pain avoiders. This is in many ways analogous to the well-known fight-or-flight behavior in humans. Associated with this is the use of emotion to avoid conflict, and the emotional dysregulation commonly exhibited by women. In being emotional, it is noted that core issues can be left unaddressed, such that a process of calm consideration and honest openness is recommended in order to achieve real outcomes. This is instead of adopting an emotional and aggressive or blame stance, with issues being avoided and never resolved. By managing one's suffering, it can be excluded wholly or partially from the partnership, or at least held at bay for a period, thus enabling space for open communication. Of course, both sexes can exhibit toxic behaviors. This flies in the face of much recent psychological and psychiatric practice, where emotional release is encouraged rather than openly facing one's personal suffering. Fortunately, the reality is that, to quote one counselor, there is no feeling in being emotional. In summary, and in taking on board all the above information, the presenter offers a two-phased solution for achieving and sustaining a long-term, intimate partner relationship. The two parts are suffering self-management through the application of Buddhist principles and techniques, and love times 12, with the actions and obligations therein outlined above. The first action involves implementation of a strategy of removing personal suffering from the partner relationship through direct intent on the part of both partners. It involves self-management of that suffering by the person experiencing the suffering, increasing their awareness and understanding of it, and therefore ultimately accepting responsibility for its management. This removes from the relationship the threat of blame being cast upon the other, or the other being tasked with solving their partner's suffering. That task of suffering management must rest substantially outside the partner relationship, though it can be discussed compassionately within. The primary methodology applied to the relief of suffering is development of an understanding of the teachings of Buddha, especially those around suffering which are focused on this. The simple act of acceptance of one's behaviors and actions are an important first step. Looking inward alongside the contemporary process of mindfulness and with the help of devices such as diaries and journals, which enable one to record life, events, and go back over them in order to support later learnings. The second element is to recognize the significance of the partner relationship. It must be treated as a separate entity, removed from other aspects of one's normal life, which nevertheless must be dealt with and may include their own elements of suffering. Key is the effort to ensure that individual suffering is not brought to bear upon the relationship in a negative and toxic way. Elements of one's suffering must be secreted away to the degree where the actual relationship can breathe. The Love times 12 action list will guide its implementation in clearly identifying to the partners the actions required or needing to be emphasized at specific periods in time. In combination, both strategies outlined above will support the nourishment of intimate partner relationships. Without achievement of suffering, self-management. The toxic nature of the other's suffering, and possibly of the partner's own suffering, will destroy it. With a will on the part of both parties. Behaviors can be managed which negatively impact upon partner relationships, and may have developed largely subconsciously since birth, including trauma. With the Buddha suffering management plus love times 12 methodology, achievement of a long-term, loving, intimate partner relationship is possible. To love, cherish, and support another through the years to their final days is the ultimate aim here.